Once upon a time, there was a kingdom full of happiness. And in that kingdom lived a king and queen that had only one wish, and that one wish was to have a child. The king and the queen were very kind people, so they knew in their hearts that one day their wish would come true. And one day, soon enough, their wish came true. They were blessed with a baby girl.
Because she was as bright as the sun that light up the day, they named the little princess Sunshine. The king and the queen decided to have a big ball to celebrate their joy and birth of Sunshine.
Everyone was invited, even the fairies living in the mystery forest. But the king and the queen made a big mistake. They forgot to invite one fairy in particular.
Everyone from all around the kingdom and the kings and queens from the neighboring kingdoms presented their gifts and best wishes to Sunshine. And last but not least, it was time for the 12 fairies. The fairies gave incredibly unique presents to Sunshine. With their magic wands, they gifted Sunshine with anything she could want in the world. In the end, only 3 fairies remained to give their presents. And they also gave wonderful presents to Sunshine.
May the beauty of the world be with you at all times. Little princess, my gift is eternal happiness. May you never be sad and always be happy. Just as the last fairy was going to present her gift, something very unexpected happened. The whole ballroom was suddenly covered in green smoke. And when the smoke was gone, the black fairy appeared. The king asked who this fairy was, crashing this beautiful ceremony. The other fairies immediately recognized her. It was the evil-hearted Black Fairy.
So, I see that everyone is invited. All the people in the kingdom. Your friends, kings, queens, and the fairies. But unfortunately, I was not invited.
The king apologized for their unpolite behavior.
Well, I will not leave this beautiful little princess without a truly unique gift of mine. The most beautiful princess will grow surrounded with happiness, love and admiration, but on her 16th birthday, just before sunset, she will poke herself with a needle and she will be gone forever.
Seize that monster, yelled out the king. But the Black Fairy disappeared with her evil laughter. It was the last fairy's turn to give her gift. She was not as powerful as the Black Fairy, but she wished for something which could at least lighten up the bad curse. I cannot prevent the curse, but I can affect the outcome. May you not die when the curse unfolds, but go in a deep sleep and wake up with a kiss of true love. My gift to you. The king, with the attempt to prevent this bad curse from happening, ordered every needle, sewing machine, or anything that even resembled a needle to be collected and burned in the courtyard of the castle.
With the gifts of the fairies, Princess Sunshine grew as a beautiful and kind child that everybody loved. One day, her dad the king ordered 3 fairies to take care and guard Sunshine, which has proven to be a rather difficult task for them, because Sunshine was not going to be in touch with anyone but the 3 fairies. Sunshine grew up to be a very beautiful young girl with her guardian fairies. Finally, the day arrived. It was the 16th birthday of Princess Sunshine. It was only until the sunset before Black Fairy's curse was going to unfold. The king and the queen did everything they could to prevent the curse from happening, but they were still worried that it would happen anyway.
They locked up the beautiful princess in a room in order to protect her.
But having no idea what was going on, Sunshine was not pleased with being locked up. Suddenly, a door appeared in the wall. Sunshine was mesmerized by this door she had never seen before, and she heard weird noises coming behind the door. Curious and unaware of what was going to happen, she entered the door. In the room she entered, there was a woman sewing with her back turned to the door. And Sunshine walked spellbound towards the sewing machine. Just as the sun was setting, the Black Fairy's curse unfolded and Sunshine reached out to the needle. And at that moment, it happened. With only a touch of the needle, she fell down and dozed into her eternal sleep. And there it was. At sunset, Black Fairy's spell was cast on Sunshine's 16th birthday. They dressed her up with her most beautiful outfit and put her on a bed of flowers. So started the days where Sunshine would be known as the Sleeping Beauty. The king and the queen wanted to stop the pain, so they decided to put everyone in the castle to sleep until the time the princess wakes up.
100 years passed. One day, a handsome prince was passing nearby, and he saw the castle covered with thorned bushes and ivy. His men told the stories about the castle and the Sleeping Beauty. It really excited the prince, so he decided to go in the castle. The bushes were too thick and the thorns made it almost impossible to go over. So he threw his sword and started opening his way by cutting up the bushes. Cutting his way through, he finally came to the door and he saw 2 guards at the door sleeping. He opened the door and was stunned by the view. There were people on the floor everywhere he could see. He started to walk around the castle and he came to the king's room. The king and the queen also were sleeping on their sofa. Then he saw a room with a half-open door. He entered. This was the room where the Sleeping Beauty was sleeping on a beautiful bed of flowers. The prince came next to the bed, looked at the beautiful princess and leaned over to her ear.
You're the famous Sleeping Beauty. You're so beautiful,
Whispered the prince, feeling overwhelmed with love. He kissed her on her forehead. At that moment, she opened her eyes and saw the handsome prince looking at her. With her awakening, everyone in the castle woke up from their 100 years of sleep.
The king and the queen were in a great shock. They woke up and ran to Sunshine's room to see what was going on. And when they saw their beautiful daughter awake, they were full of joy and happiness.
The prince asked the Sleeping Beauty to marry him. The princess smiled at him and accepted his proposal. And the king, of course, gave his blessing to the prince who saved his daughter and his kingdom. They had the most beautiful ceremony anyone had ever seen, and they all lived happily ever after.
Once upon a time, in a land far away, lived a very sad witch. The reason for her sadness was that she would never have a child. However, if she had a child, she would be able to pass on her deep secrets and powers to her. And so she made up her mind. She would take away the first baby girl that was ever to be born and raise her as if it were hers, away from everything.
The
magic of evil shall forever take over the world! Not so far from where the witch lived a couple who made a living by farming. One day, the man was surprised with the amazing news. The lady gave the good news to her husband. "We're having a baby." Unfortunately, their happiness didn't last very long. The young lady got very ill. As the days went on by, she began losing weight. If she didn't get well soon, she was going to lose the baby. Her husband tried every medicine and beneficial herb that there was, but couldn't cure her. The last doctor he went to told him that there was only one way that his wife would get well.
"There is an evil-hearted witch. She's the only one that has this healing herb. She's your only help."
The man gathered all his courage and went over to the witch's castle and knocked on the door.
Fearlessly knocking on my door? You must have an important matter.
My wife is ill, and she's getting worse. I've heard you have the best remedy for such situations as ours.
Really? And why should I help you?
I beg you, please don't reject me. My wife is pregnant. If I don't heal her, I will lose them both.
After hearing his situation, the witch changed her mind and decided to help him.
If you say so, I'll help you.
The witch gave him the healing herb.
Give a piece of this herb's leaves to your wife every day. You will see that she will heal.
The young man was very happy now. He ran back home. His wife ate a piece of the leaves every day. She began to heal and gain the weight she had lost. But the herb the witch had given finished a few days later. The young lady's illness began all over again. This time round, it got worse in a shorter period of time. Having no choice, her husband knocked on the witch's door once again. The witch knew that he would be back. She took out a bag of seeds.
These are the seeds that healed your wife. You should get these seeds and plant them in your garden, and you will be able to save your wife and child. But I have one condition. If you have a baby girl, you will give her to me.
I can never accept such an offer.
Suit yourself.
The witch shut the door on his face. Sadly, the man returned back home. He wasn't able to tell anything to his wife. As the days went on by, the young lady got worse. The baby was now in danger. The young man had trouble sleeping now. If he didn't accept the witch's offer, he was going to lose both his wife and his baby. But if he accepted the offer and ended up having a baby boy, both his wife and son would survive. And so he made up his mind and headed to the witch's castle. He accepted her offer and went back home with the bag of seeds. He planted the seeds the witch had given him. The seeds grew in a very short period of time. The young man helped his wife eat the leaves he had grown. As the days went on by, his wife got better. She had fully recovered and gave birth to a healthy baby. But the young man was facing his fear now.
It's a beautiful baby girl.
The same day, they were having a big celebration at the king's palace. The queen had given birth to a baby boy. The king was very happy, because now after him, he had a prince that could lead the country. The people loved their good-hearted king and queen very much. No one would ever know that one day in the future, the lives of these two babies would meet. The husband and wife's happiness did not last very long. Right on that same day, the witch came and asked for the baby. The couple handed over their baby in tears and said their farewells. Oh, my baby. Oh, baby.
She's mine now, but don't worry, I will take good care of her. And I will name her Rapunzel.
The witch took the baby to the tower. This tower was hidden in the deep forest. The witch went up the stairs to the very top of the tower. They arrived at the room on the top floor. The witch placed the baby in her crib.
Rapunzel, my beautiful baby.
Thinking that the witch was her mother, Rapunzel continued living her life in this tower. During daytime, she would go down the tower, play in the front yard, and at night time, she would go back up to her little room at the top of the tower. The witch never cut Rapunzel's golden hair. She brushed Rapunzel's hair every single day. The little girl liked this very much. Years had passed, Rapunzel had grown, and now she was a teenager. One day, the witch approached the tower and called out to Rapunzel.
Rapunzel, my daughter, let your golden hair down.
Rapunzel let her golden hair down. Her hair could reach the ground now.
Nice.
The witch went up the tower stairs, then stood at the top of the staircase and began to whisper magical words. Suddenly, the stairs began to crumble.
No spell in the world will ever be able to bring these stairs back again.
Watching all that was happening with wonder, Rapunzel knew that she could never get out of the tower again. The witch was using Rapunzel's hair to go down the tower every day, and in the evening she would arrive at the bottom of the tower and call out to her.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let your golden hair down, it's your mother!
After hearing her voice, Rapunzel would let her golden hair down. And so the witch would hold onto her hair and climb up.
Mother, why won't you allow me to leave the tower? Why do you keep me up here?
Oh, my darling girl, I love you so much. I'm just trying to protect you from the evil of the world.
Rapunzel spent all her days singing and talking to the birds that would visit her. Back at the king's palace, the prince that was born on the same day as Rapunzel had grown up and become a young man. Now the old and sick king wished that his son, the prince, would carry his father's throne, marry a princess and give him a grandchild. Although many princesses came by the palace, the prince couldn't see any of them as his beloved wife. In the end, the prince went on a long journey, hoping to find his real love. When he arrived at the corner of the forest where the tower was hidden, he asked the men,
I had never come to this forest before. Let's go through the forest. Maybe we'll find a shortcut.
My prince, this forest is magical. It's said that whoever enters never gets out.
You said it yourself. This might just be a rumor. Let's go and see for ourselves.
The prince and his men entered the forest. The prince was rather sure of himself, but his men not so much. A while later, the tower where Rapunzel lived appeared. Later, they heard the singing voice of Rapunzel.
La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
What a beautiful voice!
After making his way closer to the tower, the prince noticed Rapunzel singing. For a while, he watched her in admiration. Right at that moment, the witch appeared and yelled out to Rapunzel.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel, let your golden hair down.
Hearing the witch calling, Rapunzel let her beautiful golden hair down. And so the witch held on her hair and climbed up.
So, her name is Rapunzel.
The prince decided to stick around the tower for some time and watched Rapunzel. The witch climbed down Rapunzel's hair every morning and at night climbed back up again.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let your golden hair down.
In the end, the prince gathered all his courage, and on a day where the witch wasn't present, he approached the tower and called out.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel!
This was the first time Rapunzel was hearing another voice other than her mother. At first, she was a little hesitant, but later she was very curious as to who this might be. And so she looked down from the window. She saw a young man looking at her from below.
Who are you? And how do you know my name?
I am the prince of this kingdom. I heard your amazing voice and I wanted to meet you.
I'm not allowed to speak to strangers. Please go away.
I mean no harm, I promise. Please come down so that we can talk.
I can't. There is no staircase.
Right that instant, Rapunzel saw her mother coming.
Hurry! You must get away from here. Mother shouldn't see you.
The prince quickly hid behind the trees. Once the witch reached the tower, she called out. And once Rapunzel let her golden hair down, she climbed up. The prince began visiting every day. They were now friends with Rapunzel, and she now knew that the prince meant no harm, and so she let her golden hair down. The prince grabbed onto her beautiful blonde hair and climbed up. Rapunzel was extremely excited. It was someone she had never seen before, standing right there in front of her.
Why is your mother holding you in prison in this tower?
Mother tells me that the world is filled with evil. She's trying to protect me.
But this is ridiculous. Why would a mother lock her daughter away in such place? Yes, it's true that there's evil out there, but there's also beauty amongst it all.
Rapunzel was curious to see if what the prince was saying was true, and all she ever wanted to do was see and get to know the world outside. At last, they made up their minds and wanted to run away together. That night, when the witch returned to the tower, she saw that Rapunzel had let her golden hair down.
Rapunzel saw me coming. She has let her hair down.
After climbing up the tower, what does she see? Rapunzel's hair cut and tied up on a piece of metal, but Rapunzel was nowhere to be seen. At that moment, she realized that Rapunzel had ran away. Rapunzel cut her own hair and hung it on a piece of metal. With the help of her hair, she and the prince both climbed down the tower.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! How dare you betray me!
Meanwhile, the prince and Rapunzel left the magic forest behind. The story about the forest being magical was something the witch had made up, because she didn't want anyone finding Rapunzel. Rapunzel and the prince finally arrived at the palace. Taking Rapunzel with him, the prince approached the king and queen. And what does he see? The king standing in front of him, healthy as ever.
Father, you look very healthy. How did this happen?
A healing herb cured your father, my son. Let me see. What was it called? Oh, yes. Rapunzel.
Rapunzel?
The prince began telling all that had happened to him. Then the king told him that an old couple had given him the herb. Then he began telling the story about the evil-hearted witch and the harm she had caused to the old couple by taking their baby on the day she was born. The prince and Rapunzel made their way to the old couple's house. As soon as the lady saw this golden-haired girl, she knew it was her baby Rapunzel that was taken from her. My daughter! My daughter! Finally, I have found you! Listening to the true story from the beginning, Rapunzel now had reunited with her parents. Soon after, the prince and Rapunzel were married, and they lived happily ever after. So, what happened to the witch that was stuck in the tower? The king captured the witch and locked her up in the tower, and put guards at the bottom of the tower so that she couldn't escape. Along with the witch, her witchcraft and all her deepest secrets disappeared.
In the ocean, there was a big world in the far depth that nobody knew about. Giant whales, happiest dolphins, animals of all colours of the rainbow. Further deep where not even the slightest light could reach, in the deep-sea kingdom, the sea people lived in peace with all the other deep-sea creatures. The king of the seas lived in the deep-sea castle with his mother and 6 daughters and ruled the seas. The king of the seas loved his daughters very much. His biggest fear was that one day they would be harmed by the humans living above the sea. That's why it was forbidden for the daughters to swim above the sea before they were allowed.
The humans living above the sea on the land are evil.
Why are the humans evil, Daddy? Asked the Little Mermaid.
Because humans pollute the seas and kill all the life that's in it.
The Little Mermaid was very curious about the life on land, especially the humans. The stories told about them by her sisters were not enough. Her grandmother warned her about the humans all the time. But she could only go out of the sea gate when she earned her crown and grew as old as her sisters. The Little Mermaid gazed after her sisters. As they swam away, she made a plan to go out of the deep-sea gate. She took her friend the dolphin with her and went to see Himram the whale, because Himram could go out of the deep-sea gate whenever he pleased. She told about her plan to Himram. Himram did not agree with her at first because he too was very afraid of the king. But then he really felt sorry for her and decided to help. The big blue whale and the dolphin made it to the gate of the kingdom. Seeing Himram, the guards immediately opened the gates. The giant whale and his friends, dolphin, went through the gates easily. After they were out of sight, Himram the whale opened his giant mouth and released the Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid swam above the sea with the help of Himram. She felt the breeze and saw the blue skies for the first time in her life. Marvelous! Right at that moment, she heard some music. When trying to find out where it was coming from, she noticed a ship a little further out from her. It was her first time seeing a ship. This is a ship, right? Let's go! Her friend the dolphin warned her not to go, but she was already out of sight. She moved as fast as she could towards the ship. The ship belonged to the king. The king was having a birthday party for his son. He wanted his son to get married as soon as possible. That's why all the candidate princesses were invited to the party. He's a prince,
But he's a human.
warned the dolphin. Mermaid, with her beautiful voice, accompanied the melody Prince was playing with his flute. The prince heard her lovely voice and started to look around.
Be careful, Little Mermaid. They will see you.
Warned the dolphin. The Little Mermaid jumped back into the water and disappeared. At that moment, back in the deep-sea kingdom, the Witch of the Seas was watching all that was happening from her crystal ball.
That day has finally come. The daughter of the King of the Seas and a human. Let the storms roar, the wind blow, and the thunder strike all over.
With the witch's curse, giant waves appeared from nowhere, and not able to fight them back, the prince's ship started to drift towards the rocks. The Little Mermaid was very worried when she saw the drifting ship in the storm.
The ship is going to fall apart and sink. We have to help them.
The Little Mermaid dove in the water right after the ship. Swimming through the shipwreck, she first found the flute the prince was playing. She then spotted the prince, unconsciously going slowly into the deep waters. She immediately pulled him out of the water and carried him to shore.
Wake up! Please wake up!
The prince slowly regained his consciousness and opened his eyes.
You're alive!
Said the Little Mermaid with joy. Hearing dogs barking from a distance, she suddenly realized where she was and jumped back into the water, leaving the prince behind. One of the prince's men and the prince's candidates came next to him.
A girl saved me from drowning. Her voice feels familiar. I heard it before. It was the most beautiful voice.
The Little Mermaid swam back to the deep-sea kingdom. The prince's flute was still in her hand. She could not stop thinking about him. Right at that moment, the King of the Seas came in
And saw the flute in the Little Mermaid's hand.
he immediately realized that it was human-made.
We have rules, and I expect everyone to obey them, especially my children. Is it true that you have saved a human from drowning?
I had to. If I didn't, he was going to die.
Answered back the Little Mermaid.
Enough! Humans bring evil. The relations between the sea world and the human world is strictly forbidden.
With a big rage of anger, the King of the Seas stormed out the door. But the Little Mermaid still had no intentions to give up. She went next to Naga, the Witch of the Seas, and asked for help. Naga agreed to help, but in return she wanted something back. Something very valuable.
I will prepare a mixture that will turn you into a human. You'll be able to walk and dance on your 2 feet. And in return, I will have your beautiful voice.
My voice? But without my voice?
Having no other choice, the Little Mermaid agreed to the witch's terms. Because she really was ready to do anything to see the prince again.
Do not forget, at the end of the 3rd day with the 4th sunrise, the prince must fall in love with you. Otherwise, you will return to being a mermaid. And forget the prince forever.
With that last warning, the Little Mermaid drank the potion. She started to swim to the surface, but as she swam, her tail started to fade and was replaced with 2 legs. With the help of the dolphin, the Little Mermaid made it to shore. Looking from his castle to the shipwreck, the prince noticed the red-headed beauty and ran right next to her.
You, have we met before? Yes, we have.
The Little Mermaid could not talk, but she handed the flute to the prince. The prince played the tune again he had played on the ship once again. She nodded her head to tell him that she recognizes the tune from before.
I saw you when I was playing this tune on the deck. I heard your voice. And then you saved me from drowning. I've been looking for you.
The prince was sure that it was the Little Mermaid who saved him. But the girl he remembered was a mermaid and had a beautiful voice. She tried to talk, but she did not have a voice.
I thought you were a mermaid.
Suddenly, the prince started to think that this girl is actually not the one who had saved him, but he still felt sorry for her and decided to help. The prince took the Little Mermaid to his castle. The king ordered for the wedding preparations to start. He was going to wed the prince to one of the candidates on the ship. While the preparations were on the go, the Little Mermaid could only watch, but not do anything. There was no way she could convince the prince without her voice. She remembered the witch's words.
Do not forget, at the end of the third day with the fourth sunrise, the prince must fall in love with you. Otherwise, you will return to be a mermaid and forget the prince forever.
The first 2 days went by fast, and finally it was the third day. On this last day, the king and the queen were going to wed their son, the prince with the princess of the neighboring kingdom.
Poor Little Mermaid.
She could not explain to the prince that indeed she was the mermaid he was looking for, and the prince started to believe that all he saw was nothing but a dream. Her only hope was her great love for him. On the fourth day, the sun was about to rise. The Little Mermaid was crying with sad tears, but suddenly something unexpected happened. First, her sisters came ashore, and then her grandma followed.
They were there to help her.
My dear grandchild, we are here to undo the witch Naga's curse.
The Little Mermaid was very happy, but she did not understand how they could help her. And lastly, her father, the king of the seas, came out of the water. His heart could not bear the sadness of his daughter. He also realized that nothing could stand before true love.
Oh, my dear daughter, all I want in this world is your happiness. Go to him.
The king of the seas directed his wand to the seashell in grandmother's hands.
In which the Little Mermaid's voice was kept hidden, and her voice came out of the shell. And the Little Mermaid's
voice came out of the shell.
My voice! Thank you, grandmother. Thank you, daddy. I love you all so very much.
With Himram the whale's help, they swam to the prince's ship as fast as they could. As the prince and the princess were approaching the altar to say their vows, the prince suddenly stopped. He could hear the Little Mermaid's beautiful voice. When he saw the Little Mermaid coming towards him on a whale, without any hesitation, he jumped in the sea.
I knew it was you.
With her family and friends' help, the Little Mermaid finally was reunited with her voice and the prince. But she was no longer a mermaid. She was going to continue her life as a human. The Little Mermaid and the prince lived happily ever after, spreading love, peace, friendship on both land and at sea.
Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful princess in a big castle. One day, her father, the king, gave her a golden ball as a birthday present.
Happy birthday, my daughter.
Thank you, Father.
The princess loved this golden ball. She started to spend all her time playing with it in the garden. One day, she went out with her ball and started to play with it, tossing it around. The princess came next to a little pond and kept on playing with the ball. Right at that moment, she could not catch the ball after she tossed it in the air, and the ball started to roll away. My ball! The princess ran after her golden ball, but the ball got faster and faster. Finally, the ball fell in the pond and sank into the deep waters. Oh no! The princess sat down next to the pond and desperately started to cry. My beautiful golden ball! How am I going to bring it back? Suddenly, she heard a voice.
Ribbit, my beautiful princess, why are you crying? Ribbit.
She looked around but could not figure out where the voice was coming from. When she looked closely, she realized that the voice was coming from the frog that was right next to the pond, looking at her. The frog leaped towards the princess and asked again after he got closer.
What's wrong, my beautiful princess? Why are you crying?
The princess got stunned when she saw a talking frog. A talking frog? How can that be?
Well, here I am, talking, beautiful princess. Now tell me, why are you crying?
Coming back to herself, the princess started to tell her story. The golden ball that my father gave me fell in the pond. It's already at the bottom. How am I going to get it back? The frog came next to her feet and made an offer.
My beautiful princess, I will bring back your ball, but in return I will need you to do me a favor.
The princess was curious. So what's the favor?
If you accept to be friends with me, I would like to live with you in the castle.
The princess thought about it and then accepted his offer. So the frog jumped in the water and went out of sight. A while later, he appeared with the golden ball and threw it to the princess. Reunited with her ball, the princess happily started to walk back to the castle. Seeing the princess leaving the frog behind, Frog yelled after her.
My beautiful princess, you forgot me. You promised to take me with you to the castle. Ribbit.
The princess yelled out from afar, laughing. How can an ugly frog like you even imagine to live with a beautiful princess like me?
Ribbit.
The princess left the frog right there and went back to her castle. In the evening, the king, queen, and the princess sat down at the dinner table. Right when they were starting to eat, they heard a knock on the door. The maid told them that a frog had arrived and told them that he was invited by the princess and asked permission to come in. The king, surprised, asked his daughter.
Would you like to tell us what's going on, my daughter?
Well, Daddy. The princess told all about what happened that morning at the pond.
If you gave a promise to the frog to save your ball, then you must keep your word for it.
The king ordered the maid to welcome the frog inside. A while later, the door opened and the little frog came in leaping and stopped next to the dinner table.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, my king, for allowing me in.
With one big jump, the frog landed next to the princess's plate. He looked at her, unhappy. The king ordered a plate for the frog, but the frog stopped it.
No need for a plate. I can eat from the princess's plate.
The frog started to eat from her plate. The princess was really upset with him, but she thought that he would leave after the dinner anyway, and didn't say anything. But the frog had no intentions to leave after the dinner. When she left the table, he followed the princess to her room. Time passed and the frog got sleepy.
My princess, I'm really sleepy. I'd like to sleep in your bed if you don't mind.
Afraid to upset her father, the princess had to say yes to that too. The frog jumped on her bed and put his head on her soft pillow. Trying not to show her anger, the princess laid next to the frog and slept. In the morning, the frog woke the princess up.
Good morning, my beautiful princess. I have one more wish from you. If you do that, I will leave right away.
Hearing that the ugly frog would leave soon, without making it obvious, the princess was extremely happy. All right, shoot. What is it now?
I want you to kiss me, my princess.
The princess jumped out of her bed furiously. How dare you? That is impossible! The smile on the frog's face disappeared, and instead a teardrop ran down his cheek. The princess thought for a while. Oh well, what's the big deal with one tiny kiss? Evidently, I won't see him ever again. And so she gave him a kiss. As soon as she kissed the frog, a bright white light covered the room. Due to the light, the princess couldn't see anything. After a short while, the light disappeared. The princess started to see again, but this time she could not believe her eyes. Right where the frog was standing a moment ago, there was a very handsome man instead. The princess was stunned with what she was seeing. She couldn't believe her eyes, and so she asked, "Who are you? What happened to the frog standing here?"
My beautiful princess, I am the prince of a land far away. The evil witch cast a spell on me and turned me into a frog. To break the spell, I had to spend one night next to a princess and get a kiss from her. Thanks to you, I am safe from being a frog forever.
The princess was very surprised, but also very happy with what she heard. They both went next to the king and told him all about it.
This should be the second lesson the frog has taught you, my dear daughter. We should not evaluate anyone by only their looks and judge without knowing the whole truth about them.
The king hosted the prince for a few more days in his castle. The prince and the princess came next to the pond where they first met.
My princess, will you marry me and come with me to my kingdom?
The princess smiled and nodded, accepting the prince's offer. And right at that moment, a sound broke the silence.
Ribbit, ribbit.
They turned and looked where the sound came from. There was a frog next to the pond, looking at them. They held their breath and waited for him to talk. But it didn't happen. They both started laughing.
Don't worry, little froggy. I'm sure you too will find your princess one day.
And laughed a little more. After a short while, they got married and lived happily ever after. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a king with 11 sons and 1 daughter. When his wife passed away, after some time had passed, the king remarried, not knowing that the new queen was in fact an evil witch. She did not like the kids from the king's ex-wife. She always complained about them to the king and looked for ways to get them kicked out of the castle. The kids are rascals. The maids come complaining every day with something new. The new queen complained so much, soon after the king began to believe in these rumours. He first sent his daughter away to a farm not so far away. She was going to stay with a farmer's family until she was 15. Evil-hearted Queen wanted to send the boys away too. But because they were too small, the king did not approve. But she had forbidden them to leave their room. One night, the queen came to their room, and with just one spell, she turned them into 11 wild swans. She then opened the window and left the room. The boys, who were now wild swans, flew out the window. Years had passed, and the girl was now 15 years old. That same day, she returned to the castle. Whilst she was waiting to see her father, her stepmother, the queen, saw her. Seeing how beautiful she had become, the queen was so jealous and furious at the fact that the princess had returned to the castle. While waiting for her father to arrive back to the castle, as tired as she was, the princess fell asleep in her room. The queen entered her room and cast a spell on her. Suddenly, the princess's hair got really messy. Her face changed and was now somewhat darker. The king returned to the castle and was very happy finding out that his daughter had returned. He immediately went over to her room, but the girl sleeping in the room did not look like his daughter at all.
This is not my daughter. I order you to get her out of the castle immediately.
After this order, the king left the room. The king's guards woke the princess up and took her out of the castle. Whatever she said or did, she could not convince them to let her see the king. With no other option, the poor princess was on her way, crying.
I should at least find my brothers. If we were all together, no one can harm us.
When walking in the woods, the young girl met an old lady. She greeted her and asked,
Have you seen 11 young princes around here? I do, girl. I haven't seen 11 princes, but I have seen 11 wild swans every evening. They go right over there to the shore.
The young princess sadly left the old lady behind and went over to the shore. Around sunset, the 11 wild swans the old lady was talking about came by her side. Soon after the sun had set, the 11 wild swans turned into 11 handsome princes, leaving the princess stunned. The young girl recognized her brothers that instant and began running towards them. While she was running, she turned back into the beautiful princess she once was. And of course, her brothers recognized her instantly. With joy and happiness, they hugged each other. The evil queen's spell had worn off. It was the power of their family love. The 11 princes told the young princess their story. They could only be human at night, and after dawn every day, they turned into wild swans again. Since it was almost dawn, they decided to take her with them. They made a basket of reeds, sat her in it, and right when they were ready, the sun came up, and once again they all turned into wild swans. The wild swans held on from the side of the basket and began to fly. The young princess felt extremely happy flying with her brothers. It felt as if it were a dream. After a short while, she fell asleep. In her dream, she saw the fairy from the land of the clouds.
If you want your brothers to turn back to normal permanently, you have to make them jackets from stinging nettle. But until you make them all, you should not mention this to anyone. Otherwise, they will stay as wild swans
forever. After giving all the facts, the fairy vanished. The young princess did not say anything about her dream to her brothers. Her brothers left her on a land close by and flew away, promising to return soon. The princess began gathering stinging nettles for the jackets, but every time she touched the nettles, her hands would hurt and swell. But she did not care about the pain and continued to gather the nettles. Suddenly, she was spotted by a prince who was hunting. The prince was mesmerized by the beauty of the princess, and so he quickly made his way over to the princess to say hi.
Hello, beautiful lady. It's the first time I see you around here. Why are you gathering the stinging nettles with your bare hands?
Because she could not tell anyone about her plan, the princess could not answer.
I am the prince of this kingdom, and if you allow me, I would like to invite you to my castle.
The princess accepted the invite, thinking that she would be much safer in the castle. And so this way, she could save her brothers faster. Spending her days in the castle, the princess secretly continued making the stinging nettle jackets for her brother. But one day, the prince's cousin saw the princess sewing clothes with the stinging nettles. And so he thought that she was a witch. He started rumors in the castle so that she would get arrested. At the beginning, the prince did not believe any of the rumors, but as time passed, he became suspicious. One night, he followed the princess going out of the castle into the woods. And when he saw her gathering stinging nettles...
So the rumors were true. If she wasn't a witch, why would she gather all these stinging nettles? She's obviously gathering them to cast a spell.
He immediately ordered his guards to take her and put her in the dungeon. Even in the dungeon, the young princess secretly continued to make the jackets. And finally, one day, she finished them all. The following day, they took the princess to the city centre for her trial. She would be punished at the end of the trial here. But right when the judge was going to announce his decision, suddenly 11 white wild swans flew down from the sky next to her. Everyone was stunned, looking at the wild swans.
My brothers, you came! The jackets are under my skirt. Put them on this instant.
All her brothers wore their jackets that were under their sister's skirt. One by one, they all turned into human again. Unfortunately, only one of the jackets did not have enough stinging nettle for the arms. The youngest brother's arms remained as a wild swan's wing. After turning into human again, the princess began to explain all that happened to the judge and the people. They told them that their sister was innocent. The prince believed that the girl was not a sorcerer. He apologized to her. With the happiness of her brother's freedom, she forgave the prince. All together, they returned to the castle. The prince proposed to the young girl.
Will you marry me, my beautiful princess?
Yes, my prince. But first, we must visit my father with my brothers.
This way, the 11 brothers went over to their father's castle. Their father was extremely happy and surprised to see them. The children began to tell their father all that had happened.
Hurry and catch the queen. Bring her to me.
After finding out about the kids, she knew she would get caught, so she secretly turned herself into a crow and flew away and never returned to the king's castle. The young princess said her farewells to her brothers and father and returned to the prince's country. They got married and lived happily ever after. The story of the wild swans about love and hope has been told from generation to generation.